Do your bidding.
So, Mister, what kind of news do you have for us today?
I must say that I'm just going to go with the quick, not sarcastic thing and say that I'm quite happy with the way that Starlink launches are occurring. So Starlink has started launching the 5th group of the satellites, and the last was on 28th of December. And it actually is making me doubt some things that I was thinking about 5 or 6 years ago. Because when somebody said to me that we are going to have 12,000 satellites in orbit in order to have high-speed internet, it seemed to me that this is basically lunacy. And now Starlink has 3.6 thousand satellites in orbit and working, and they have basically reached coverage that can be considered actually working. So they are able to provide the internet on almost every part of the globe for a price that is, I wouldn't say low, but the price that is acceptable for most users. So it makes sense. And it was basically done by a private company, and it didn't end the way Iridium ended way back when we were trying to first start the Iridium cluster and try to provide internet access. So my news is not news. My news is just me being happy that this is going well and that we are going to achieve internet coverage of the entire planet before we achieve end of world hunger. So,
okay, I feel the need to be sarcastic here now, because you started it as well.
Yes, okay.
So now you don't have a problem with Elon Musk owning something as a private company and a private person.
No, because he's not trying to influence the launches. There is no way that he can vote on the launch. There is no way that this is just simple engineering. You actually make stuff go up, and then stuff goes up, and then stuff works. And this is something that he's good at. He's not good at trying to deal with the end users. He's not good with dealing the problems with the end products when he's actually producing cars. But what he did with the Starlink satellites is completely okay.
I agree.
So SpaceX is probably his best project. And then it's followed by Starlink and the whole constellation thing about the internet being provided to the whole world.
But so, you do understand that internet is still a political thing.
It always is, and it always will be.
So it's still about influence.
It's always about influence. You would be completely wrong if you said that this is a pure philanthropy, because nobody does anything that costs money out of pure.
Philanthropic reasons only.
Yes, because in order to get money, you need to stop being philanthropical, need to exploit somebody. But this is going deep into political theory that we are not going to push into.
Okay. I have another question related to that, actually. So when I was still back at college, this was actually my graduation thesis related to internet via satellites. You think that that's the future?
I think this is part of the future. I don't think this is the future. I think this is the backup for the future. I think that this is going to be something that is going to be used wherever the normal fiber optics and normal 5G, 6G, whatever G network is not available.
Are you calling that the last mile?
I'm calling it a last resort, basically. So
it kind of is like a last mile problem then.
Yes, it's a last mile problem for places that are not economically viable for other sources. So, for example, in Croatia, this would be almost all the coast, all the coastal towns that are smaller, because there is no commercial viability in trying to provide internet. I don't know, 10 miles or 15 kilometers of internet fiber to connect to 2 or 3 homes. It's much more. It makes much more sense to just use the satellites or use some other means of distribution, and people are relying more and more on high-speed internet. But also, I think this is going to be something that's going to be used by a lot of Internet of Things services, because they rely on having the internet in the places where they want to collect data. They don't only rely on the internet at the places where people are. So if you're trying to collect data for some particular experiment, so you are going to need the internet, you're going to be needing the high-speed internet, and this is going to be making a lot of sense in this particular cases. So whatever makes internet affordable and makes internet globally accessible, this is a good thing from my perspective. The bad thing is what is going to happen with the infrastructure itself. So how SpaceX is going to deal with the Starlink satellites going out of production, crashing down, because after all, they have put up 3,666 satellites up until now, and they are going to crash. So they're going to probably crash into each other. They're going to increasingly become a problem for different launches, for different other things. And this is something that we are going to have to deal with. But the internet part is okay with me.
Okay, I'm fine. I agree.
As with everything else, there is a good side and a bad side.
Yeah, that's all cool. Anything we want to add to that?
No. Internet good.
Internet good. Internet of Things good as well.
No. No. Okay. Internet of Things possibly good, probably bad. Because the lowest common denominator is trying to create something that is as cheap as possible, that is going to come up in an impossible short schedule, and then trying to push it on the market. And we have seen waves after waves of things that are connected to Internet of Things and are being completely misdesigned, especially on the security front. So I don't think that Internet of Things is something that we should be talking about right now, because they deserve their own episode and their own sarcastic
mood,
this section, because I am a big proponent of Internet of Things. I think that the Internet of Things is going to create immense things for humankind, but at the same time, I think that we lack right now, we lack experience, we lack knowledge, and foremost, we lack regulation that is going to enable us to utilize the Internet of Things. Because it is going to become a big problem when all the different things that are connected to the Internet start being obsolete. And then we are going to create a lot of technological debt in the Internet of Things world, and there's going to be a lot of running completely obsolete machines that are going to be on the internet, that are going to be security nightmares, and they're going to create a lot more problems for the administrators like us as the time progresses. So,
okay.
Let's talk about the Internet of Things sometime later.
Okay. With that being said, let's go to our main topic of the show today, which is going to be something completely different.
Okay.
Okay, so our main topic of the day, I'm going to do the intro this time because this is a topic that
bothers you, basically.
It's not only about bother. It's something that I have a lot of experience with, and it cost me a lot of nerves over the years. And I keep running into that problem all day long when I'm working for some of my, let's say, global companies and partners. It's something that's been around the block for many years, and it's pure wrong, and we need to discuss it. So in our first episode, you actually used the term Excel manager.
Basically, you did. You were making jokes of Excel managers. I think that layer 8 of the network
layer 8, that's good.
It's a big problem in almost all the all the implementations. But you use the term Excel managers. I'm not saying that all the managers are Excel managers, but usually the main problem lies with the manager and usually with the middle management.
Yeah, okay. So going back to what I started talking about. So the terminology that I'm using, the Excel managers, is specifically guys in the IT industry, which that are on managerial positions that look in the IT through the looking glass of cost and nothing else. So but at the same time, when they present their mojo to the, let's say, management board or something like that, depending on the size of the company, then they are all about, the IT is the biggest partner that the company has, and IT is going to take us to the future, and IT services enable us to make money and whatnot. So that's my beef for today, and as I said, being fortunate enough to live in a world in which a lot of my clients are all around the world, in the world of education, basically a meeting is just it's not a phone call away, it's like a Zoom call away or something like that. Almost every week somebody complains about this from various parts of the world, from different, let's say, parts of the IT industry, not only from the enterprise segment, but also from the service provider segment. So I wanted us to do a little bit of a, let's say, poop show on the topic of managing IT as if it was just a cost thing, without looking into what IT actually provides. So that's the underlying thing that I want to discuss today. And overhanging that, I want to also do a little bit of a discussion, even a little bit more technically detailed discussion about the way in which enterprise companies use cloud services specifically, because what you find in the enterprise segment of the market for the enterprise customers, they tend to oversimplify and idolize cloud without any merit.
But I think that first you will need to state, you will need to state your ground, and I want to understand what you're trying to talk about, because usually the IT, we can agree on one thing. Management above IT usually thinks that IT is all cost and no benefit.
Or mostly cost.
Yes.
Benefit in really small portion.
Yes. So basically, let's try to keep things simple and say, okay, all cost, no benefit. Mm-hmm. Usually, a thing that is running is considered a good thing, but money shouldn't be spent on things that are running. Money should be spent on things that need to be expanded, mm-hmm. or things that are broken. And usually the best or the most complicated thing is trying to explain to lay managers, mm-hmm. Let's call them that layman's managers, that things that are running and DevOps guys that are not running around and trying to fix things is a good thing. Mm-hmm. This means that somebody has done his job well. Mm-hmm. And when you have management that understands this, then you are talking about the layer below it, the Excel managers for the IT, who then try to optimize the infrastructure that is running, and they are trying to make things better. Because usually
better.
Yeah, I'm going to be all sarcastic now, and I'm just going to say let's just talk about let's imagine we have a company. Your company does something. That something is in order of 10,000 users or more. You create a working stack of something. Mm-hmm. I don't care. Cloud, hybrid cloud, local cloud, local servers, bare metal servers, whatever. And you create an environment that enables you to provide the service for whatever you're doing. Mm-hmm. As soon as this happens, you are going to have 3 to 6 months of peace, and then somebody is going to say, do we need to cut the costs because everything works? Mm-hmm. You are going to usually, from my perspective and what I see, you're going to see that people are completely going to completely neglect that you have to actually reinvest into infrastructure. Mm-hmm. They're going to try to do the usual, we don't need capital expenditures, we are going to create all the operational expenditures as a must. So you're going to see that if something works, we are going to try to create a microservice of it. Then we are going to push it to the cloud. Then we are going to push it around, and then we are going to make it not work. Then we are going to complain that this is not working,
and then we're going to complain about the operational costs.
Yes.
Because that's a part of the equation.
Because both you and me know that there is no silver bullet. I like to quote the Mythical Man Month book from way ago. There is a whole chapter called "There is no silver bullet," because in IT there is no silver bullet. There is no universal solution to any problem, because if there was, there wouldn't be a problem. If there is a problem of optimizing cost, this means that optimizing cost is a complex problem that needs to be solved in different ways in different companies. The idea of having a universal solution to cut costs and universal solution to optimize the business usually means that there is no such solution. But you need to actually work on it. So we are agreeing on it. Mm-hmm. My biggest, I think that in this part, I think that you are even more progressive than me. Because I believe...
this is something that I do, I think, way many more hours than you do.
No, it's not only that. I think that you didn't have to endure talking to a lot of startups.
Yeah,
and
correct.
I think that your biggest problem right now is that you actually have more experience with the companies that were bigger and that actually were able to work. My experience comes from smaller companies that tended to have a lot more problems because they were trying to use whatever hype is now about any application on the market. So they would
fit the square where the circle should be, or something like that.
But in 4D.
Yeah, that's excellent. 4D chess, we love that.
For the chess, because the problem is that when you are trying to put up a startup, first you are trying to get the most out of the money you have. You are trying to avoid expenditure that is going to be a capital expenditure as much as possible, because you want to burn through the money that you have, but you don't want to burn it up front. Mm-hmm. And then you are going to choose from, it's probably tens of thousands of applications that are intended to help you work with in your startup. And you're going to waste an enormous amount of time trying to make it all fit together. Then you're going to try to use some sort of middleware glue to make it all fit together. And then you're going to find out that there is hundreds of solutions for this. Mm-hmm. And this is something that is creating problems. So the way that usually the development stacks are done, so the LAMP stack, the whatever stack there are right now, this is something that most startups think that should this way of thinking should be applied to all the applications that they're using. So, for example, for communications, for email, for hour tracking, for human resources, for communication tracking, for help desk tracking, and so on. There are hundreds of solutions, and they think that there is a universal solution for everything. And they are wasting time and money trying to find out the best solution, and usually they don't have enough knowledge to do it. Mm-hmm. I think this is the same thing that is happening with the cloud. Because the cloud...
I agree.
Because the problem is that for the cloud, everybody understands, or almost everybody understands, that they need some sort of a consultant that is going to give them a breakdown of what the cloud can do.
If only that was true.
But they know that
they probably are going to reach that point. But
yes.
Usually they don't know that.
They
don't want to admit it.
No. They don't need a consultant, but they don't understand that the true consultants actually cost money because they need an enormous amount of knowledge of the cloud.
Yeah.
And
that's exactly the point that I'm going to try to prove.
So
today.
I'm going to make this point for you, and then make your whole trying to prove the point completely.
I'm going to add to that point.
Yes, because I think that most of the companies think that the blurbs from the cloud companies is something that gives enough information to go into the cloud. This is first thing.
Yeah, technical marketing.
Yes, and the other thing is that a lot of the companies don't understand that consultants are few and far between. There is not so many consultants actually understand how your work process is translated into the whatever technology you are going to use to apply it. So a consultant probably and should understand what you're trying to do. Them should understand what the solutions are for your problems, and then to understand how those solutions are mapped to different functions that can be provided by different services.
Yeah, but they should also always take care of the inventory of the stuff that's already existing there.
Yes, but
that's a part of the process.
But the problem is that there is no such thing as universal consultant on the cloud.
Correct.
And the problem is that people think that there is. They ask a technical guy to explain us whatever cloud you're talking about. I think that you are going to talk about Azure, but being it Azure, being it AWS, or being it Google, or being it Oracle, being some other cloud, usually they turn and talk to the guy who already implemented something in the cloud. And more often than not, these are the people who you shouldn't talk to, because those people have implemented this cloud and they like this cloud. There is a lot of subjectivity and evangelism for different clouds.
Correct.
So we are always going to have a problem with people pushing whatever cloud works for them, because a very small percentage of them have tried different clouds, and very small percentage of them understand what the differences between clouds actually are. So, for example, there is not a lot of consultants that I know that are into storage. They know how particular storage model works in AWS. They know how particular storage works in Azure. They know how particular storage works on Google or whatever, but they are unable to compare those storages because they have their own pet storage solution that they usually use, and they are not into gritty details of all the other different solutions. So this is something that is creating a lot of problems. But the cloud is not the solution. Sometimes the cloud is the problem.
Yeah, I wanna make that as a point first. Actually, I want to make two small points. Small point number one is that cloud is, and I openly stated this whenever I'm working for somebody, be it in a consultancy role or if I'm doing some kind of a cloud education, I don't care. I always state to them, to people coming to those either consultancy sessions or to education, I tell them in the first 15 minutes of getting to know each other is that they need to be aware of the fact that cloud is not a be-all end-all solution for anything, because it's not.
And this is the thing that actually bothers me.
Why?
Because I would think that people would, after all the IT experience they have, and usually we are talking about people who have 10 plus years experience in IT, they should be able to understand that there is no such thing as a universal solution to anything in IT.
Yeah, but they might. It's about the Excel managers pushing them.
Yes, but even the Excel managers should be able.
Don't use that word. Yeah, should be able is a conditional clause which doesn't really translate to reality.
Because if you actually use the Excel and then map up different solutions to the problem that you're trying to solve, you are going to see different outcomes and different financial incentives to use some technology or the other technology. So you're going to see that the landscape is not black and white.
Yeah.
And the problem is that the people you are talking about, Excel managers, are actually not Excel managers. They are just being completely short-sighted. They are trying to solve the problem quickly, and they are trying to solve the problem that they think is a problem.
Yeah, as we usually use the metaphor, point A, point B, point A problem, point B solution, like a laser scope, that's the path to solution, which it never is.
Yes, but the biggest problem is sometimes that the customer is unable to explain what the point A actually is.
Yes, and that's also a problem related to documentation and inventory and knowing the business processes and many other things.
So I'm going to ask you one thing that is going to be completely tangential right now, but let's
cool.
start it. Do you know of any company that has failed its initial 27,001 audit for the security?
Yes.
How many of them in percentage actually failed? So an auditor came to the company, said, okay, I'm going to do an audit, and then said, okay, you're going to pay me, but you failed.
I know of one case out of X.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
And this is one of the problems.
It is.
And this is the problem with the cloud.
This is
because
primarily problem with the auditing process that allows too many things to be accepted as risks, but yes.
Yes, because you are basically the thing that auditors say is that they are being paid by the customer. And they, in the end of the day, they need to be paid. So failing is not a case that they need to go for. So they're going to create an environment where the customer is going to be able to use the different techniques to, I wouldn't say avoid, but to lighten up the procedures and all the different documentation issues in order to pass the audit.
Yeah.
And I think that the same thing happens with the cloud. Because once the customer decides that he needs to go into the cloud, he more often than not, he's going to just decide that he needs the cloud. He's not going to say, I have a problem that needs to be solved. He's going to say, I need to solve this problem in the cloud. And then a happy consultant is going to say, not going to say to him, you don't need the cloud, please buy the servers, because he's not going to get paid.
Yeah, I will, but yes, I stand by your point. Well, I want to talk to you about the second mini point that I wanted to make, which is it's going to seem like an obsolete and completely insane example of what I'm saying, that cloud is not the be-all end-all solution for anything, but it's a valid point. Every country in the world has strict legal framework relating to financial data and accounting.
Yes.
In Croatia, we have 11 years this, blah blah blah, that, permanent that, whatnot. Doesn't really matter right now. It's similar in all countries all over the world. Mostly, it's just the numbers are a little bit different. Doesn't really matter for the discussion. What does matter for the discussion is the technical solution that provides those capabilities. And I use this example often, and believe it or not, much more often than not, people completely agree with me because they do have an exactly the same thing while somebody is pushing them to migrate to cloud, which is they have a couple of generations of older accounting applications that they have to keep as a matter of a permanent record, which means that they have a couple of generations of OSs running as well, not all of which are supported by the cloud. And to go even more extreme, I know more than a couple of dozen companies, and actually in our part of European Union, this is a very common scenario. We could probably find thousands of examples like this. More often than not, you're going to find that a company that's been around the block for at least 15 or so years, so 15 plus, and there are many of companies like that, smaller companies. They don't have to be big ones. For big ones, even worse. They used to run accounting applications in MS-DOS.
Yes,
I had the same thing, and I know hundreds of people.
Me too. But the problem is that let's make one thing clear. The cloud is primarily intended for people who want to start on a clean slate.
No, it's not.
It's primarily no. It's designed for people who are starting from.
That's much better.
Because when I say intended, I mean that it wasn't intended in the start. It was intended to run everything. But then the cloud providers saw the light and understood that they actually don't want to deal with the edge cases. They want to be able to just provide the newest, latest generation of whatever it is.
That's all true. That's all true.
And then they're going to leave the problems to the customers. And the customers think that the cloud provider has done their homework and that everything can be migrated to cloud.
Yes.
And then this becomes a problem.
Of course.
Because the cloud doesn't want older applications. First and foremost, because you can put probably hundreds of applications into one virtual machine if they're in DOS. So there is no money to be made there.
It's not that. There is no, I don't think that you can still find a single certified cloud provider that
Is going to run
has
DOS.
MS-DOS as a part of the supported OSs list.
Yes, but the problem is that they would support DOS if there is money to be made.
No, they wouldn't.
They would because
No, they wouldn't. It would be way too much. Way too much development would be needed for that because the drivers for most essential things do not exist.
Let's agree on disagreeing, but I think that the invisible hand of the market would do it.
No, I semi-agree with you.
Yes, okay? But because for every technical problem there is a solution. But I think that there is no not even a hint of financial incentive to do it.
Okay, but so there are other examples. It doesn't have to be DOS, Windows 95.
Okay, but everything that is small, nobody cares about it. Because the cloud right now is trying to sell you storage, they're trying to sell you CPUs, they're trying to sell you a network.
Yes.
And those applications don't use any of those. So they are not interesting for the cloud providers because the majority of the customers basically are there to be skinned.
I know. All this doesn't really deserve this kind of discussion. I just want to use these two things as light.
So let me try to this more on the cloud providers. I think that the cloud providers right now like bloatware, misdesigned configurations,
expensive services.
Enormous microservices. Because one of the things that right now is a big fad is trying to create everything as a microservice.
Yes.
So suddenly your application for accounting for a firm that has 20 people employed can be designed as 70 microservices running at the same time.
Yes.
And
yay.
Yeah. I'm not going even to say yay because this is good for scaling. But I know one particular case where the company is trying to do microservices and try to do the accounting part. They are trying to create a microservices cloud, microservices pod, whatever, that is going to be able to be spun on whatever computer there is.
Like a unit of deployment or something?
Yes, so whatever, pod of Kubernetes, Kubernetes or whatever. So basically a small subset of microservices that are going to work together.
I already have that.
Yes, but I would say more than 90% of the customers they have less than 10 employees in their system. So basically, they are creating a system that is so complex that it needs, 20, 30 microservices to be running at the same time in a pod. And then when everything is spun up, it is basically in the level of usefulness that would be expected from a pretty large Excel spreadsheet. And this is something that is a big problem because when you are trying to push a company that is small and you push solutions that are using microservices, and then those microservices basically demand a cloud solution, suddenly you are solving the problem of cracking a nut with a bulldozer.
Yes.
And a lot of people tend to buy the bulldozers.
Yep.
And cloud shouldn't be selling bulldozers. Cloud should be selling solutions that actually work.
Correct.
But the solutions usually don't make enough money.
Yeah, okay. So let's move to what I wanted to show in terms of, generally speaking, our talk today. So going back to the original topic, which was related to so-called Excel managers and some oversimplifications, under deliveries that I've seen hundreds of times already. And I said my colleagues and projects that I do and a lot of the education that I do stands to validate the point that I'm about to make, which is as follows. There's actually a good quote, and our mutual friend from our office mentioned this quote, which made me laugh yesterday. If something takes 5 minutes to do, then please don't let me be in your way. That's something that can be completely applied to the process of how a lot of people working in IT from the managerial perspective view cloud. In terms of cloud is simple. Just do it. It's a couple of clicks of a mouse and we're done. Okay?
Yes, but I would think that the biggest problem that we have with the cloud is that the cloud is usually interpreted as if we put it in the cloud, it is going to scale. And then you don't need any scaling at all because you are over provisioning in a way that is hard to describe.
Yes.
And I think that the biggest thing that a lot of cloud providers are trying to sell you is, as I said, CPUs, memory, and storage is going to be something that you don't need.
Yeah.
And if it takes 5 minutes to do, don't make you stand in the way of it. Is one way of thinking about it, and but the other way is thinking: do I actually need 5 minutes? Can I describe my process and then make my process actually fit into what I'm trying to do? Because if you are trying to fit the process into the cloud, you are doing the things the wrong way.
Yeah.
You need to fit the cloud to the process. You need to fit the solution to the process.
That's all good.
What I don't understand is what are the differences? Because right now we are completely on the same page.
Yes, we are.
So why is your page different than mine?
No, what you should be doing is actually shooting me down and saying that you want a certain design to be done.
Oh, so the diagonally scalable, multi-cloud,
turbo diesel application,
synergical design that is going to enable us to do the whatever is done with the
7 vertical lines.
Yes, so whatever is done and when you're dealing with the problems.
That's cool. Anyway, I just wanted to kind of like go to a short demo to try to visualize what the problem is when people oversimplify how cloud is very simple. Okay? And I wanted to show that in the simplest way possible. I'm just going to go through one cloud wizard. And then we're going to talk about it, okay?
Okay.
So I logged into Microsoft Azure, just created like a temporary account. And I want to create one virtual machine. I'm going to start the wizard. And then you're going to see all of the different hoopla that this is going to create if you approach the idea of creating a virtual machine in a correct way, which would be design thinking. I want to, as you said, I want to fit the cloud to our solution. I want to have that as some kind of a working unit that fits my need.
Okay, but first I think I'm going to ask you. You know that you are right now making a mistake.
No, I'm not.
You know that this is a mistake because you should have your solution sketched down before you're trying to create virtual machines. So you are doing this on purpose.
Yeah, I'm absolutely doing this on purpose.
Okay.
I am doing this on purpose.
Because
I would never do it this way in production.
Because I'm trying to make an excuse for you because if somebody sees you doing this, if they understand that you're trying to do this not on purpose, but you are actually doing it the way you are usually doing it, you can come up as a less than satisfactory DevOps guy.
No, that's okay. I don't care. This is not a DevOps discussion.
Okay.
So the first thing that you need to understand is, and you already mentioned this, cloud terminology is complex. There are a lot of terms there. Okay, virtual machine is a virtual machine. Kubernetes is Kubernetes. Docker is Docker. But then after the first layer of common terminology, you get into the details about terminology that exists actually on all of the clouds. Things are called different. They represent the same or almost the same thing. And yet you have to really start, if you approach this topic correctly, you have to read about that. You have to do a little bit of education. You have to read a little bit of Microsoft Learn or something to actually understand what the hell you are doing in this wizard.
So create me a virtual machine that has an outside IP address.
Yes.
Yeah. What is the outside IP address called?
We're going to come to that because that's actually complicated.
Yes, I know.
In cloud, yeah.
In clouds.
Because at the end, we can also do a comparison of how this would work if it was your physical infrastructure. And I think that we are both going to agree that doing this on your local infrastructure is definitely easier.
Yes.
So it asks me to create something that's called a resource group.
Okay.
The logical question of somebody who is using Azure for the first time is going to be, what the hell is a resource group? Okay. Yes, you can use the terminology resource group. That means that you're going to put some resources somewhere. Yes, you can approach it in that way. And you can say, I don't want to read about that. So this is my, let's say, cloud resource group 01, whatever. I'm going to create new one because the whole environment is completely empty right now. Then it's going to ask me for the virtual machine name. Okay, test 01. All good. This is where things stop being easy. This is where things go from, level 1 to level 1000. In one.
I think I know what the next question is. So create me the cheapest machine.
Yes. The next question is create me price efficient.
No. The cheapest. The
cheapest. Okay. And then the first thing that you're going to have to do is you're going to have to select the instance size. Because you have to look at the pricing calculator for certain instance sizes in different regions.
Based on regions, yes.
Yes. So you would go here and you would notice that there are 551 virtual machine instance sizes.
Okay.
I'm not saying that you should read all about every single one of them.
But you should be having at least a ballpark idea of what you're trying to create.
Correct. Which again brings me to my previous point, which is you should actually read about this.
So let's spin up a small DOS machine.
Nah, not going to happen. Yeah, that's
3 DOS.
Let's say that I just want to spin up a small Linux machine, something in the realms of 1 vCPU, 2 gigabytes of memory, something very simple. If you want to do that, if you want to go through the searches, for example, here, because you could display cost, vCPUs, all, you can actually go and say, I want to have a virtual machine that only has, let's say, instance size with 1 vCPU. And then let's say I want to have custom amount of memory in gigabytes, let's say 2. And then you get the list of some of those machines that you can use. So this is me super simplifying the process because I've done this 100 million times. But it's not as obvious when you're doing it for the first time.
Yes, but I think that the biggest problem that you created right now is that you are letting your knowledge go into the way
I'm doing it here specifically. For this part of the example, I'm doing it on purpose. I'm going to stop doing it right now.
No. I'm talking about the other thing. You actually have defined what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And this created an enormous amount of it eliminated an enormous amount of uncertainty.
Yes.
Because certainty is something that usually people don't have. They don't understand what they want. They say, create me a machine.
Mm-hmm.
And then having 500 machines is a problem.
Yeah, okay. Stick with me. So stay with me on this one. I just wanted to show an example of how the good thought process, or let's say a little bit optimized one, would work.
Okay.
I'm going to stop doing that already on the next let's say, thing that I need to select.
So which region?
I have no idea.
Give me the cheapest one.
Okay. I'm not going to do that. Let's say I know that all of the clouds, and I think that it's quite intuitive to think this way. All of the cloud providers have certain, let's say, pricing details or pricing calculators available. I think that's a fair standpoint. So we would say, let's say, Azure pricing calculator. There, it filled it for me, so I'm not cheating on this one. You'll go, for example, to Azure pricing calculator. And then you would say, I want a virtual machine. I don't want to participate in that virtual machine. And you would view your virtual machine so that you can see some details. And you would actually go back to this one,
see what the
instance size is.
Yes.
So it's B1MS. Let's try to find that. Already it's making my life more difficult. So B1MS, this one. Okay, it says it's $21.02 per month in the region of West US. I'm located in, let's say, in European Union. And out of, we had a discussion about GDPR, etc. I don't want to host anything.
This can be okay for you, but usually it isn't.
Yes, for the most part it isn't. So I have to select something that's within the realms of the borders of European Union.
So you have just created another problem because you said, I said cheapest.
Yeah.
You said cheapest, but legitimate.
Yeah, exactly.
Or legal.
Didn't I say that I'm going to make it more complicated?
Yes, okay.
Yeah, but this is a real process. This is not me faking it. This is the way in which you would do it. And you would then go and, for example, select Germany North. You can see that the price is bigger. Then you would go and say West Central. This is less in terms of the pricing. And France and North Europe. And then you would go also to, for example, Norway and Sweden and Switzerland. You would go through roughly 10 regions so that you can find the cheapest machine. Let's say, for the purpose of our discussion, that the one that I selected is the cheapest.
Okay.
To make our lives just a little bit easier. Otherwise, we're going to be stuck in this wizard for the next 3 days. So that's good. So that means I want to select Germany. Germany. There is a search mechanism here, thankfully. Sorry, not availability options. So to Europe. There is no Germany.
Okay.
That's another thing that, I saw this as well. Maybe that specific virtual machine instance size is not available.
Not available, actually not available.
Yeah. Let's say I'm going to do North Europe. Doesn't really matter now. This is where, as I said, this is where things start piling up in terms of complexity. Availability options, you press the I button and then starts talking about something. And then you say, okay, Azure virtual machine. It says here availability options. Now, I have to give credit where credit is due. So kudos to Microsoft that they actually created a lot of consumable content. You can easily find it on Google, which directly relates to the options in Azure, which makes it much more user-friendly. It didn't used to be this way.
The only problem that I see with Microsoft is not that they didn't create the content. I think that the biggest problem is that they have created such an enormous amount of content about different things, and they are right now sorting through it and trying to make it understandable. Is the content actually applicable to Azure or the core operating systems on the bare metal?
That's okay.
And this is the biggest problem because they decided to create another set of websites that they're called Learn, and they are in the middle of migration from the TechNet and so on and so on. And this is a big thing for me because sometimes people who don't have experience get lost into the enormous amount of data because they don't see if the particular article is referring to an actual Windows server, whatever,
or Windows service in Azure.
In Azure, yes.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. But let's say that we found our necessary option here. Then it says security type. And then I would go and see trusted launch virtual machine, confidential ones. There are actually some descriptions here. If I took 30 seconds of my time, I could understand what they are. Let's say that I'm happy with this one. The image part is, I think, the only straightforward thing in this wizard from start to end.
Yes, and the most amazing thing for me is the first thing is Ubuntu.
Yes.
Because as we all know, the Azure is the biggest place to run a Linux.
Yes.
And the most used operating system in the Azure is Linux.
Yeah, okay.
Can it be Arch?
I'm not sure if it's here, but maybe there's Arch Linux on Azure Marketplace. We could try to find it there.
No.
Because there are external sources that you can bring in, but it's a part of Azure.
There lies madness. No.
You would go again, cutting corners a little bit.
No, I'm just trying to make the talking points for the people in the comments.
Arch. Let's see if they have anything. Arch Linux on Azure. There we go. And you would pay for it. So yeah, there are a lot of these things that you can run.
As I said yesterday, you should be paying for the things that are wrong, bad for you.
Yeah, I agree. That's good. Then VM architecture. I think that 99% of people don't know what this is. And even if we discount everybody who's not an IT person, there will still be like a pretty sizable percentage of people who don't know what x86 versus ARM64 is. Doesn't really matter. Let's say that the default option is x64, which is the way it should be. So let's say.
And what is amazing for me is that you are first deciding on the operating system and then on the architecture. And usually the operating system that you have chosen is not the one that can be run on both architectures.
Yeah, I agree with you. This wizard is not necessarily completely logical. Yes, it is not done in a way in which both you and I would like it to be done. But then again, kudos for having ARM virtual machines. This is actually a very recent addition, which is a good one. We already talked about the size. Now, authentication type, public key. If you're using Linux, public key or password doesn't really matter. Let's say manager 01, some kind of a password. Doesn't really matter. And then things start going back to their usual complicated self. Inbound port rules, public inbound ports, select inbound ports. Most people would be, what is this? So let's say that IT guys would recognize that this has to do something with the firewall. But the crazy or almost stupid or even a little bit evil thing is the fact that you're configuring this here, while at the same time there's another tab later in the wizard which has basically the same options, maybe a little bit more. But the logic behind it, it took me many months to understand this, because it's not easy to understand the logic of somebody who is creating these UIs. I'm not even trying to anymore because it just pisses me off. The reason why is because you have review plus create button here, which enables you to basically skip all of the next steps and go directly to the creation process, which is a simplified
problem.
No, it is a simplified process for the regular, simple users. Okay, because the wizard is then going to fill the data for them for networking and other pieces of configuration, which is user-friendly, yet can be wrong. Okay, but mostly isn't, to be fair.
Okay.
To be fair, it really isn't. But again, we are talking about a scenario in which you have some kind of a company thinking about migration to cloud. So let's say that they're a little bit more informed, that they spend at least a little bit of time discussing this.
I have a point. I'm trying to say something.
Yeah, go ahead.
My biggest problem right now is that you are talking about a wizard that is clearly not intended for people who are common users. Because
no, this first part, this first tab, basics,
yes,
can get you to 100% created virtual machine if you just are able to write a little bit of text, select a couple of things, and press review create.
Okay, but first thing that I don't trust Microsoft with is that they are not going to change the defaults. So the first thing that I wouldn't do, even if there is such a wizard, is to trust the defaults that Microsoft has created for me, because they can change at any time, and I need to review them before the machine is created.
You will be able to do it because you have a review phase.
Okay.
So this is not a create. This takes you all the way to the review plus create tab. If you press this, and you have a chance to do it. Again, this is done for normal users. Unlike both of us, we are much more technical, etc. And it's done, I think, in a correct way. Okay. But again, we are more technical. So next topic is disks. This is where things become like crazy. Encryption on a host, VM disk encryption. You can read at least 50 pages of documentation about this. Then it asks you for the OS disk and the data disks. Most regular users would just give up here because most users wouldn't understand this terminology at all, although it comes pretty natural to us. But when you start talking about this one, so you have premium, standard SSD, standard HDD, zone redundant, premium, standard, whatnot. Then you have enable ultra disk compatibility, key management. Do you want to delete with VM checkbox? No sane person would understand what it is, although they added it, let's say, more than a year ago. And it was one of the things that millions of people asked for. Reason being that if you delete virtual machine in Azure, without this checkbox, the disk of the virtual machine is in your storage account, spending money.
Yes, but I don't see what the reason is for this, because you are not spending money then.
Yeah.
Don't
defend them.
I had to hunt for 45 minutes to find in which region in AWS I had some storage used, because a couple of years ago, when I was trying to do this, there was no actual tool to hunt down where the storage was and what kind of storage was I using.
Same thing applies to this.
So I had to hunt region by region and try to find what was stored where. And then when I actually found out that I didn't have a disk, I had a template stored in the storage, I was able to delete it and then stop wasting. It was, I think, 3 or 4 cents per month. But it was actually...
pissing the hell out of you.
No, the problem is that such a small amount of money is something that you don't, for the first couple of months, you don't care. And then it starts eating you from the inside.
Correct.
And then you say, okay, I'm going to waste a couple of hours of my time to try to stop wasting 4 cents a month.
Which is completely irrational, yet completely rational.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. Same things happened to me in Azure hundreds of times.
I actually got the notice that they're going to try to do the debt collection on me, because the problem was that
17 cents of debt or
20 cents. But the problem was that my card expired. And it wasn't able to auto renew or auto bill, and then they were taking me with the
long live Revolut virtual cards. Yeah, I know what it is. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Actually, we're going to come back to this later on. I'm going to try to do something. You're gonna find this as funny and as irritating at the same time as I did. So basically, it says here OS disk. You have loads of options. You can spend hours reading about this. Data disks would actually, to translate into normal human terminology, would be additional disks in the virtual machine. And you can go and create and attach another disk. You can see that they are, by default, you're using a terabyte disk. That's awesome. Yeah, that's exactly what I need. Let's say I needed 64 gigabyte. And then again, you have performance tiers. No sane person knows what IOPS is. Okay, us IT dudes do, but still, not really something that we most people pay attention to. So you would be able to select this, and this has influence on the cost.
Yes.
One other, let's say, thing. If you add, you can see that they are like to the power of 2 in terms of capacity. If you say I need a 90 gigabyte disk, what do you think is going to happen?
Next bigger one.
Yes. It's going to round it up to the next bigger one, basically not offer you what you want, but what it wants you to use.
Okay, but I understand this, because this is the idea behind this is
standardization.
Standardization and creating regions for the failover and so on.
Just wanted to mention.
Yes.
Okay. Then again, key management for encryption. Is it a shared disk or not? Do you want to delete it from? I'm not going to spend more time on this because it just starts eating away at my soul. Then it asks for example, whether or not for certain virtual machine instance sizes, do you want to use host caching and which? Read one, read write. Again, you can spend hours discussing that. So already we've spent 15 minutes talking about this. I'm not even one further of the way across. Networking is where things become even more weird, because it says, I need to create a virtual network. We know why. And logically, people would be able to understand why, because you need to have your own network, which is not going to be a part of somebody else's network. They need to be isolated for privacy reasons. All that is easily understandable if you know it or if you read about it prior to doing this.
But most of the people are not going to understand it, because most of the people are used to having VPS machines. And they are used to having a machine that has an outside address, and that's it. No networking, no virtual switches, no virtual networking.
Yes, because in cloud, it doesn't work that way.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, it can work that way. You can create a virtual machine like that, but it's a completely different thing.
Because, I know, but I'm just making a point, because we were talking about a normal user, but normal user is expecting this not to exist.
Yeah, basically to be VPS, publicly available, and that's that. I mean, this machine is going to be publicly available, is just going to be publicly available behind the object IP address that cloud assigns to it, while being in the internal network via port forwarding or whatever. That's the way in which cloud services do it, and there's a security reason why.
Okay.
Security is the reason why. It's the functional reason. Then it asks you, network interface card. Let's say we know what it is. Network security group. What the hell is that? Again, this is the configuration that we saw on the first screen. You can see it, public inbound ports, select them. This is the firewall configuration. So network security group is basically Azure's version of a firewall inside the virtual network. If it's a Linux machine, maybe you want secure shell, and let's say you want to do Apache or something. Let's say you would select HTTP, HTTPS, you would be happy with that. You don't want RDP because Linux doesn't use that, luckily. Then you have this checkbox about deleting the public IP address and NIC when VMT is deleted. It pisses me off that I have to select this for every type of object, but it's still way better than not having it and track it down later, as you did and as I did more than a few times. Here is one more thing that I want to discuss for a second. Enable accelerated networking. And when you go to information button, enables low latency and high throughput on the network interface. This is more than enough information for general public, but if you really want to know what it works, you really need to follow the learn more link, and then it's going to start talking about single root input-output virtualization, partitioning, this and that. No sane person can understand what the hell this is. Okay, even a lot of very seasoned IT guys do not understand what this is. Believe me, I tried and checked. If I start talking about single root input-output virtualization, everybody's going to fall asleep. And yet it's a very important topic in terms of how we use our hardware, but topic for another day. Then management. Identity, shutdown, backup, guest OS updates, whatnot. Okay. Literally, probably the simplest step that we have. Finally, something that's humanly, rationally explainable and usable. And then you get the monitoring tab, and stuff gets weird again. Although there are not many options.
But I would have a small argument to make there.
Okay.
Management.
Want me to go back?
Yes.
Okay.
How are updates different when you're dealing with Windows machines and Linux machines?
There are different orchestration options here. You
okay.
can do automation, you can do manual updates, they can be pushed to you via the Azure policy. So there are a gazillion different ways in which you can do this. But this is more of a standpoint of somebody who is using, let's say, a hybrid cloud or a large enterprise company or something like that. For regular people, I think they would just leave the defaults and everybody would be happy. And the good thing about...
Because for the most part, Windows will deal with the updates themselves. So
for all the good and the bad
yes,
of it.
Yes,
I agree.
Yes. And Linux is different.
Yeah, Linux, most of the distributions do not want to do it that way, although you can make them do auto updates as well, as you know. But we don't want to have that. You have basically just one or two important options here, boot diagnostics and guest diagnostics. This is for all of us guys who want to have the diagnostics, boot diagnostics options, for all of us who want to have remote console access to the virtual machine. Which, again, most people don't understand what it is. IT guys very much understand what it is because it saves our lives to have that access. ILO, IPMI, lifecycle controllers, etc. But the weird thing is actually that Microsoft changed the policy of how this works roughly, let's say 2 years ago. Because by default, all of the machines used to have, if I remember correctly, the boot diagnostics turned on, automatically saved to your storage account. There is a reason why that needs to happen this way. It's architectural reason. And you didn't need to configure this in any shape or form. If you leave it like this, you don't have a remote console, which is stupid. So you have to go and say, I want to enable this with the customer, because the third option is disabled. The second one is somewhere in the middle, but it expects you to do a post-deployment configuration in which you're going to say, where does the boot diagnostics get saved, to which storage account, which is stupid. It should be enabled by default, and it should be free of charge, Microsoft. Because by doing it this way, they basically made us pay for that. And then you have some advanced capabilities here. For example, we made a book about Cloud Init, so you know what it is, not the topic of our discussion. So you can do a little bit more of automation and orchestration options, etc., and performance options and blah, 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 blah. And the last part is the tagging. So let's say that you want to call your virtual, you want to mark your virtual machines as something. Let's say blue machines, red machines, yellow machines. Blue ones are, I don't know, Linux machines. Red ones are Windows.
Production backend, production front end, test backend, front end, whatever.
Reason being that by using the tags, we can sort them and search them in a little bit more humanly way, without actually looking into the names of the virtual machines per se.
This actually makes sense when we are
running many virtual machines.
Yes, when you're dealing with numbers.
Yes, at scale, this is an immensely powerful tool, and the more VMs you have, the more you're going to want to use this. And finally, after I think 40 minutes of discussion, we are at the review plus create window. Maybe it's going to throw some error. You never know. Sometimes it happens. And in here, you see that you have 0.0227 USD per hour. If you remember, when we were checking the prices, they were not in prices per hour.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. Okay. So that's another. Let's say I would call it complexity. I would call it confusing thing. It's crazy that at one place they're doing it in one way and completely different in the other. But
I think this is dark pattern. I think this is just dark pattern for the sales guys, because they are trying to, I wouldn't say hide, but they're not making a point of showing you how much this costs in something that you can actually relate to.
Yes.
So this is just made to seem cheap.
Yeah, it is exactly that, because to the human eye this looks cheap.
Yes,
it's not. So right now we would be able to press create, and you can see that the whole configuration, all of the options, something that we discussed previously, is here. So let's create that virtual machine, just for the fun of it. It's going to take, let's say, 20 seconds or so. After that, the real fun starts. So this is a queued process. It gets put in a queue, and it gets executed. They deploy the virtual machine from a template with, actually I deployed one today, and it already had all of the latest updates, which I really liked.
Okay.
So after the deployment, if I was to log into that Ubuntu machine and do, update and upgrade, 0 packages would get deployed, which is good. They do keep their Linux machine templates up to date really well, to their credit.
But as I said, most of the machines in Azure are Linux, and I would expect that they are paying attention to the Linux, because Linux is part of them making money.
Large part of them making money, yes. And all of the correlated services and stuff that they're running. There we go.
And the other thing is that if I had an environment but it runs hundreds of millions of Linux machines, I would want, from the security standpoint, to have them all running the latest version of all the security updates.
Okay, so here's my virtual machine. It was created. To go back to the topic that you were mentioning, so you can see that it does have a public IP address assigned.
Okay.
It also has, if you go to the networking tab, it also has a local address in that subnet that we created assigned as well. So from the perspective of end user, somebody sitting at home, that person would connect to this IP. That IP would, in the backend, let's say networking stack, get translated to this one. You would end up connecting to this Linux machine without even knowing how that's made. So it's, from the standpoint of regular users, this process is as transparent as possible. That being said, take a look at the amount of tabs that you have here. And I can tell you from experience that there are like 30, 40 tabs here. At least 25 to 30 of them you're actually going to use.
Okay.
Complexity. This is not a simple thing. If you want to do that remote console that I was mentioning earlier, you go to boot diagnostics. If you correctly configured it, you can see the screenshot. Basically, that's like a screenshot from that console. If you go to serial log, this is something that a lot of people using, for example, OpenStack will recognize, because this is something that is available there. And if you want to really have the remote access to the console, you go to serial console. That's a part of the storage account configuration that we did. And roughly, generally speaking, It didn't create the storage account correctly. Again, an error. It happens a lot. Even if it did create it correctly, what usually happens is 1 out of 2. That's my average. Serial console, I try to connect the first time, it doesn't work. Then I go to something, and then I go back to serial console, and all of a sudden it starts working when the storage account is provisioned and made. Let's see. But it will probably, start working in, I don't know, a minute or two. It depends on how quickly it's going to create what's called a storage account. What's a storage account, you ask? It's a place where you store your data.
A bucket.
A bucket of capacity where you store virtual machine data, files, binary data. What doesn't really matter which type. But it didn't create, I think, successfully my storage account. Not that I care. But I want to show you something in the opposite direction, which is going to infuriate you. So I'm going to go back home. I'm going to go to virtual machine. And I'm going to say test virtual machine. I just want to stop that. Stop in Azure terms means shut down. Okay. Let's wait for this virtual machine. So it succeeded 0. So the built-in utilities were able to communicate with the backend, and they should be able to stop this virtual machine. But please pay attention to how long that's going to take. So it's already like 15 seconds. It's still running. Deallocating. That's not still done. It says that it's now done. It's like, so it stopped after, let's say, 30 seconds. How many seconds does a virtual machine take to shut down? Regular Linux machine that you're running on your laptop.
Probably a couple of seconds.
Let's say 10 at worst case in 99% of the cases.
If everything is okay.
If everything is okay, 99% of your Linux VMs with 1 CPU, 2 gigabytes of memory, 10 seconds stops. Let's now delete this virtual machine. I'm going to go through a scenario with you that is most probably going to infuriate you. So it needs a confirmation. That's perfectly reasonable.
Okay.
Delete. Let's wait for that process to finish. It's also going to take a little bit of time. Let's refresh. So it's queued. There, it's done. And now I want to go back to the beginning, and I created this cloud resource group.
Yes.
In which I've put both the storage account and the virtual machine. So resource group is a bucket for all of that.
Okay.
Let's say that I want to delete this resource group because I'm not using it anymore.
Okay.
So it tells me that it has some resources.
Okay.
Trust me when I say that this didn't look like as it looks right now, only a couple of, let's say last year. It didn't present me with the resources. I needed to find them manually.
Okay.
Just like you were. So I want to do a deletion process of these objects because they are a hierarchy of objects. They are correlated and codependent one on the other. So I need to delete them so that I can delete the resource group. Let's see if that works. Most commonly it doesn't, but you try a couple of times and then it does. That's the start of the infuriating part. Let's see what happens. And we're going to refresh a couple of times as well. There we go. It was able to remove. Let's try to delete the resource group now. It says that I still have the disk.
Okay. And where is the disk?
Disk is in the storage account,
But
which I just deleted.
Okay.
Is that logical?
This makes sense.
Why?
Because I'm used to this kind of lunacy in the cloud.
But I selected the checkbox for that to be deleted with the VM.
Yes, but I know for a fact that a lot of cloud resources have a problem with lingering objects when it comes
Absolutely true.
Yes, I know, but I expect this problem.
Okay,
I expect that everything is going to be subject to me waiting for at least 10 minutes to things to settle down.
That's all cool. Let's continue with the demo, and I want to show you something else as well. So delete resource group, the disk is there, just so that point proven. But the problem with this is actually something else. I'm going to go to resource group.
Do you have any way to delete disk right now?
Yes.
Okay.
I should be able to. I'm going to try. if I select this cloud resource group, do you see a delete button here?
No, but I'm just short-sighted.
No, there is no delete button. So this is, again, UI gremlins, underdeveloped gremlins, not making rational decisions. Let's go into that resource group again. And now you can see that the delete button here is grayed out.
Okay.
But there is a delete resource group here button that is not grayed out. More than 50% of the cases when I do this, just go back to something and go back to the resource group, open it, delete resource group is grayed out.
Okay.
And then I have to go to PowerShell or something to delete it manually because there is no other way. Or Azure CLI, doesn't really matter which methodology you want to use, which pisses me off to no end. Because imagine, let me just use an example. I'm in charge of managing and monitoring an Azure environment that has close to, let's say, 100 terabytes of data.
Okay.
That 100 terabytes of data is stored in roughly 20 virtual machines that are spread all across the world in different regions, different data centers. They have availability sets. They are highly available. This, that, backup this, backup that. It's endless web of interconnected, codependent crap.
Okay.
It needed to be done that way. There is an architectural reason why. And when I started optimizing that, not in an Excel manager fashion, but actually removing stuff that I don't need, what you called lingering objects. Last time when I did that, I've spent 2 days doing it. And I don't have thousands of objects, just because...
Was this when you were trying to move internally data across the network internally, and then you got a couple of kilobytes per second?
That's something that I also wanted to discuss.
Yes, okay.
So I made a live demo of this in front of our students.
Okay.
In which I've shown them that if you want to copy the data from one Azure region to the second Azure region by using the public IP address of virtual machine A to B,
yes,
that was more than 20 times faster, not slower, faster, than going through backend Azure network. Those virtual machine networks that we were doing later.
But this is completely logical to me.
It's not.
Because you are paying for egress and ingress.
It is kind of different. You still are paying for both directions of the traffic, but in no way, shape, or form should the local network be slower than the public network. That doesn't exist in real world.
Yes, it doesn't exist in the real world, but in the actual world of making money, you don't want people using the local network. You want people using
but that local network, they're also charging for it.
Are they?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
they're charging. It's not a matter of cost.
I'm just going to make one more point. Both you and me have experience with cloud. Even I'm not completely sure what is being charged and what is not being charged in a particular case in a particular cloud.
I'm sure in this case.
In this case, you are sure, but there is always a chance that something has changed.
There can always be changes.
Yes, and this is the biggest gripe that I have with the cloud, because I need to be completely sure, I need to double check every time.
Triple check, quadruple check.
And then I need to check if the article that is applying to this pricing is applicable to my region, and if this is the current article that everybody is referring to, and this is not something that has been done in the past and then is being obsoleted by somebody else.
So two things to add to this. Thank you for reminding me of that example, because I completely forgot about it. When I was doing that optimization, I was just copying a backup of a SQL database. One file. So it's not 100 million small files. And the metaphor that I used, so copying over the public versus the backend network. So for those of you listeners who are not necessarily IT people, I basically said that if you connect two computers via cable, they have less transfer speed, so they're slower to communicate than if both of those computers were connected to the internet and communicating via that network, which in real world, there is no statistical chance that this is ever going to happen on purpose, that the local connection is slower than the public one. It doesn't exist. You know that.
There is a guy running a uplink cable between those.
Oh, thank you for serial ports. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, let's start to delete this. Let's see. You can see
But
that.
I'm just going to make.
Can you see?
Yes.
There is no disk anymore.
I'm going to make you angrier, and I'm just going to say that this comes from the guys who are able to create a new version of the Windows Server that is unable to accept new users via PowerShell, because
coincidentally topic of one of our future podcasts.
Yes. So they have created a more broken version of the Windows Server in the ways that the basic functionality of the server itself is broken. And it is the functionality that I have absolutely no idea why it was even touched in the first place. So just those guys.
Yeah. Let's delete this resource group. So the disk is gone.
Okay.
You know why?
Because we waited enough.
Yes.
I know, but this is normal for me. It's not normal for people who are not used to the cloud.
Correct. Which is exactly the reason why I said everything that I said.
And the biggest problem is that when you are dealing with the manager, and when he says delete this, and you say I need to wait for half an hour, and he looks at you and says why, and you said I actually cannot explain to you because I don't actually know.
You cannot, for the life of you, understand that.
I can try to explain to you.
You can rationalize it.
No. I can try to explain the idea of it, but what is happening right now, I have no idea.
Yeah, I do have an idea.
No, both you and me have an idea what is happening, but we don't actually know what is happening.
I think we do. It's some kind of a RabbitMQ, some kind of message queuing API call being made there and then sitting in the queue for God knows how much time. Doesn't really matter. So let's press delete. Let's see what happens. Please note that I'm still sitting in that object. So I'm still on that object that I'm deleting, which is a stupidity in itself.
No, you're just looking at the UI that hasn't refreshed, and that's it.
Yeah, and now it refreshed, and all of those resources shouldn't exist now. So I only have Cloud Shell Storage, the same one which Azure said doesn't exist, so didn't provide me with boot diagnostics because of it. Beautiful, but it's still here. So that's actually another resource group created. I cannot literally to semi-quote Jeremy Clarkson. For the life of me, I cannot understand the brain of a person who thought that this is a good job. For this to be made as a separate part of it, and all of the things, these delays and everything, the GUI itself is probably the worst source of information in Azure. Generally speaking, let's try to delete this resource group because things could happen.
I have one more point to make when it comes to
let's see if it's
specifically Microsoft and what they are doing with the cloud. I'm going to just put this on my screen. Just give me a second.
I'm still trying to delete this. Let's see if it finishes successfully. It did. That's a first. And I'm going to now try to delete the last resource group that I have, which is created for me by default when you create your cloud account. Let's see what happens now. Let's see if that's going to be deleted, just for the fun of it. Never tried it.
I'm just going to go through this. Can you just switch to my computer? So this is one attempt to make a list of all the Microsoft administration portals and different portals for different Microsoft services that exist on the internet. When I say attempt, this is because people are not completely sure if everything is here. You can actually go to the GitHub and then download the list from there, and people can actually make changes in the list and commit those changes to add another portal if the portal was missed from this list. So this for me means that there is so many, I wouldn't even call them teams, I would call them boring factions that are trying to deal with the...
They're trying not to communicate.
No, they are achieving the not communication part. But I think that they are even trying to probably play for the same resources inside the Microsoft and trying to pull the resources to for their objective. And it makes absolutely no sense for me to have this many different portals for different things. So basically, Azure portal, release candidate portal, preview portal, directory administration center, tenant center, signing up portal, cloud shell, Cosmos DB, data, and so on and so on and so on. This makes sense for somebody who is deep inside the Azure. But it doesn't make sense for a normal person. And the biggest problem that I have with all of this is that differences between different things inside these portals are so minuscule that people sometimes don't understand what they're dealing with. They cannot be completely sure what they are dealing with right now.
Hence why I wanted to cover this topic, because oversimplifying cloud as a model, cloud as a provisioning methodology, cloud as an operational thing that you use on a daily basis is wrong. Cloud is way more complex than any of the local services that we are using, because it has so many available options. One of the key reasons is that one. You can treat that as a good and a bad thing. Not going to get into the discussion, because at the end of the day, it's what you want to use.
But I must admit that I'm missing.
I actually managed to delete everything, which is first time ever. And I've been an Azure user for 10 years.
So what you're telling me is that complexity is inherent to the cloud.
It is.
And what you're telling me is that the complexity is something that people should be able to deal with in a way that they should learn about the cloud, hire a person who actually knows what he's doing, and deal with the cloud as it is a complex system. But to be completely aware of everything that is happening, you also have this problem with servers, with storage, with internet providers,
networking, security.
As soon as you go out from, I have these 3 machines and these 3 machines are connected to the internet, you suddenly have a problem, because you are going to create an environment that is usually something that you need a specialized person to do.
That is true, but the levels, or if you want to put it in geographical terms, the dimensions of how much more complex cloud is to what you just said is actually immeasurable to put in words. It's not even on the same plane of existence.
Yes, but when you're dealing with the cloud, the complexity is there, okay. But usually, you can more or less quickly solve your problems.
If you know what you're doing.
If you know what you're doing. When you are dealing with servers, usually your mistakes are more expensive. Because when you're over-provisioned your cloud and you haven't used those resources, and you understand that you're over-provisioned the cloud, for example, you allocate 10 terabytes instead of a terabyte, it's not the same as if you bought 10 terabytes of the wrong kind of storage. So cloud is complex, but the mistakes that you make in the cloud are usually less expensive.
You're completely wrong.
If you do the things right.
If you go to, let me give you an example. You can freely try this if you want to as well. This is my final point as far as I'm concerned. If you go to Azure Pricing Calculator, do this when you find some time, and just try to put a couple of, let's say, 10 virtual machines there, with, let's say, 5 of them being a couple of 100 gigabyte ones. Let's say a couple of them being a couple of terabyte ones, basically like SQL or something. Try to simulate an environment in which you have enough resources to, let's say, cover SME business. Doesn't have to be all that big. Let's say 10 VMs, 2 domain controllers, 2 file servers, 2 SQL servers, the regular stuff that you will find in Microsoft shops. When you are done with that, it's going to take you literally 2 minutes to click that into Azure pricing calculator. When you get the breakdown of the costs, before you look at it, take Xanax.
But the problem that I see is that if you are as an experience that we are as the people that we are talking about, and you come to the cloud and you provision the cloud in a completely wrong way, it is not the same.
No, but this is provisioned in a correct way.
Okay, but being provisioned in a correct way or in a wrong way, if you try to take a look at the breakdown, you are going to see your mistakes, and usually you are going to be able to bring down the virtual machines that you don't need, and then you are going to basically understand that the cloud is usually not for you, because if you
Correct.
need to, because usually if you create an environment that is correct, and then you need to take any kind of medication to be able to pay for it.
I was using it as a metaphor.
Yes, I know, but if you need to think about paying for it and you see that the problem is that you cannot afford it, it usually means that you have a problem with your configuration and that your configuration is not intended to be in the cloud.
Please don't tell me, just like our colleague did, that we are too cheap or that we are too poor to be using a cloud, because that would be, I think, not. I'm not using the word politically incorrect. It would just be wrong.
I'm not saying that being too cheap to use the cloud is the right methodology. Being sentient enough to not use the cloud is the right thing, because
No, use it, but use it for in a correct way, in a sense of use it for something that cloud actually can do for you well, not for everything, which is what a lot of people are doing.
As I said in the beginning, there is no such thing as a silver bullet.
Yeah, I know.
The cloud is a solution to some problems.
Yes, while creating others.
Local infrastructure is a solution to some problems. For example, if you need high availability, if you need cross-site disaster recovery, if you need something like this, usually cloud is part of the solution. If you have simpler demands than that, if you have non-changing utilization of the servers, so basically servers that have a constant load, usually the cloud is not the solution for you.
Correct.
And the problem is that people, as we said, people don't understand those cases. And your whole rant about the cloud being complex to use is basically based on you actually knowing what you're doing. People who are trying to migrate to cloud, as I said, they usually made their mind up, and they decided that this is going to be the nail that fits the hammer. And they have the hammer in the hand. They are not going to decide on the screws. So the biggest problem that we have with the people right now is that cloud is used as a universal remedy for everything. Cloud is the best solution, the scalable solution, and so on and so on and so on. To the point that we actually have consultants for cloud demigration, or removing the cloud outside of the infrastructure.
Yeah, a lot of that is happening, actually.
Because people are making money by reducing the complexity of the cloud infrastructure that people have grown into. Because inherently, when you are working with the cloud, first you design the infrastructure and say, okay, this infrastructure works for me. The amount of money that I'm paying for the cloud is okay. Then complexity keeps getting added. It's easy to add it. And it's like boiling a frog. It's slowly creeping up. The prices are creeping up. Everything is creeping up. But people usually don't see it because
until it reaches the boiling point.
Yes, and then the boiling point is reached. And then people start thinking about what they're going to do with the cloud, how to remove themselves from the cloud. When you are buying servers, it's not the same, because you actually see the investment that you're making in, and you see that the hours needed to connect everything, to configure everything, the hours are there. So you actually see the problem, because the problem is usually staring you from the racks. And then you are completely aware when you made a mistake. So it's much, much easier to make a mistake in the cloud. It's usually easier to remove this mistake, because it's much easier to remove a virtual machine from the cloud than it is to remove a server from the rack. Because after all, you need to actually sell it to somebody, and usually people don't want to buy it. So mistakes are more costly, but in the end, cloud is more costly, because people tend to just say, okay, the cloud should be more costly because total cost of ownership, blah, 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 blah.
CAPEX, OPEX, economic bullshit.
20% more
Yeah,
than...
accounting reasons,
Yes, amortization, accounting, expenses, and so on and so on. But for me, I have seen a solution where I actually saw that the solution was designed in such a way that this particular company was able to buy 4 times the amount of capacity that they needed if they bought it for the price of the cloud.
Same.
If only they just actually bought the physical servers. And the reason why they went for the cloud solution in the first place was completely miscalculated usage case that was completely interpreted by the guys who were actually designing it. Because they designed for one usage case, then mid-implementation switched to another usage case, and then basically said, okay, but this is going to be good enough in the cloud. So the cloud solution wasn't good enough. Local solution would be much, much better. And the cloud solution was 4 times more expensive than the local solution.
Yeah, I had the same discussion here in the company, but luckily we work for a company that's reasonable. But let's finish this off. I just want to say one more thing, basically 1 or 2 sentences thing. Thank you for verifying. Thank you for noticing that I was doing this from the perspective of me actually being kind of informed about it, because my point is, if you're not, you're going to be worse off.
But
there is
as
no
a
but.
person,
There is no but.
No, but as a person who actually did lectures on the virtualization and had students log into the Azure or other clouds for the first time and try to put up a virtual machine, you actually need a lot of knowledge to be even able to put up virtual machine that runs.
Exactly my point.
And the problem is that people stop learning.
Correct.
People say, okay, I have managed to do the virtual machine. I have a couple of them. I managed to make them communicate to each other. I have an SQL database. This database now works. I'm not going to touch anything else because everything is carry. And then they are paying the bills for something that they actually don't need, or even worse, they are not going ever to need. And this is something that is inherent to the cloud, because the cloud is an extremely complex tool. If you buy the servers, it's the same. But the servers, since they're pricey, are going to make you learn a lot of stuff before you buy. Cloud is also expensive, but it is going to make you learn stuff after you buy the services.
Which is exactly the wrong approach.
Which is the approach that is completely normal.
Yeah,
This is the reason
and
why,
wrong.
and this is the reason why all the subscriptions come with the first month free. Because you need to see that the subscription is great, and then you need to pay for the bill.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So this is the reason why the way the cloud is the way it is.
Yeah, my rant was actually completely about that.
I know, but I was trying to make sense of it, because your rant was at times looking like you have a specific hate towards Azure.
No, I am an equal opportunist ranter for all of the clouds, because everything that I said applies to AWS, GCP, and everybody else.
I think that right now, all the other clouds are different in a way that Microsoft was late to the cloud market.
Yeah.
And AWS is even more complex because they have a huge problem with UI. Because their UI is trying to cover so many different technologies that Microsoft doesn't even have in the cloud. And at the same time, their UI was created when the cloud was created. and their UI is trying to use as much dark patterns as possible to make you pay more. They are saying that this is not on purpose, that it's just for legacy reasons, but I don't see that they are removing problems with the UI and with the stuff being hidden from you as quickly as Microsoft is. And they're coming from different approaches. Google first created the cloud to enable Google to work, and then decided to upsell basically the remaining storage and the capacity that they had in the data centers. AWS was strictly created to be sold as a cloud, and then Amazon decided, okay, we are going to use part of it for our own purposes, but we are going to create a product that is going to be the AWS, and the AWS actually works because it was first on the market. And Microsoft hasn't yet decided what they are trying to do, because they were trying to create a cloud environment, from my perspective, and cloud environment that is going to be Microsoft friendly, with the Azure Active Directory and so on and so on and so on and so on. And then
Azure Active Directory is the wrong example, but yes.
Yes, but they were trying to make a Microsoft friendly environment.
That's where they started, yes.
And then quickly, but I must say that quickly realized that the Linux is the right way to go. And then the first part of the Microsoft actually went Linux-centric, almost Linux-centric in the cloud, because they were trying to say, okay, we don't care that we are the Microsoft. If you want to buy Linux, we are offering Linux. Because we are not going to make any money by offering overpriced Windows servers in the cloud. Because if you remember, Windows servers were extremely overpriced in the cloud when they started.
That's all good.
And this is the problem that all the clouds have. They are taking the baggage with them. They have a lot of baggage that comes out of what was before and what were they trying to solve in the start. And I think that right now, from different clouds, I would say that Oracle is basically trying to be the best, and they are making the most effort to create something new. And
I heavily disagree.
Yes, but their effort is completely misplaced. Because what they are trying to do is basically say, okay, look at us, our free tier has an enormous amount of processing power for you to get for free. And I see it as an attempt to say, okay, as a hidden attempt of saying we completely over-provisioned the idea that we were able to sell, so we need to quickly make people use it because somebody is going to look bad in front of the management. Because they have so large capacity that is not used that they need somebody to use it, even for free.
Okay.
So we agree. Cloud good if used correctly.
Yes, if designed correctly.
Servers good if used correctly.
Yes.
Stupid people make stupid choices, create stupid solutions.
I don't like the word. Let's say uninformed people make bad choices. Therefore, a lot of times companies get hurt in terms of the amount of money that they pay.
Yes. So, do you think that the companies should be as part of yearly performance review? Should the companies be made aware that they need to create software and hardware review, software performance review and cloud performance review to see if they are actually right now using their resources wrong?
Of course.
And how many companies do you know that they actually do this?
Just a couple. Because
the problem is that I see that not only is the cloud used incorrectly, but once the cloud is inside the company and deployed in the company, I see a lot of companies saying, okay, this is the status quo and now we are not going to change it.
Yeah, and that's our dumpster. Let's throw everything in.
Yes.
Yeah, I dislike that for the same reasons that you do.
Because I don't think that the point that we should be doing as an industry, we shouldn't be selling just because of the sales.
Yeah.
You mentioned technical sales. I remember a guy...
technical marketing, but yes.
Yes, technical marketing, technical sales, whatever. I remember a guy that was trying to sell me, and you know him, but I'm not going to mention him, that was trying to sell me an exchange solution for something. And basically, he showed me the solution that was tailor-made for this particular company, and it was amazing. It was quick, responsive. Everything was running as clockwork. The only problem was that he over-provisioned it in the order of times 12. Because he was able to, he wanted to show me how the exchange is going to be responsive, quick, and nice to work with. And then when the actual cloud solution was installed, the administration portal and the administration part was slow as hell because it made no sense to over-provision it the way that the sales did it. So don't trust the guys who are trying to sell you the stuff in the cloud.
Yeah.
Try to find somebody who actually knows what he's doing and who did something. He doesn't have an inherent interest in trying to sell you a particular cloud.
Agreed.
Okay. So
that was it from us for this episode, and we'll see each other soon.
And before we go, this was Vedran, I was Yasmin, and somebody noted in the comments that we haven't introduced each other and we were very hard to find on the internet.
Yeah, we're going to do that in due time.
Yes, and we are going to probably include some sort of information about us in the description of the video. And the other thing is that you can find us on where usually you get your podcasts. You can find us on YouTube. And Spotify and all the different places. And please subscribe, because we need to start saying please click on the subscribe and the button.
Like, share, subscribe. Yeah,
like, share, subscribe.
That's what our life has come to. Awesome.
Yes, but we don't care right now because making money on this podcast only means that we are going to buy another unnecessary gadget. So
more equipment,
yes. So let's do this for fun, not for the money.
Yeah. Okay.
Bye.